Before we get into today's episode, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Well Prepared Nest. Well Prepared Nest is my concierge chiropractic and birth services business. I created this work to support parents through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum and beyond, and to meet parents where they are, literally and emotionally. If you're looking for family-centered chiropractic care in the comfort of your home, or if you're looking for placenta encapsulation services, or if you're looking for a childbirth education class to help you feel informed, empowered, and prepared for birth, you can check out the details at wellpreparednest.com. All right, now let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to my Black Home Birth podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my home birth story, and I'm super excited about that. So I want to just give a little background that my home birth story is really what pushed me to start this podcast. So when I had Nomani, that's my baby, when I had Nomani 2 years ago, I found myself wanting to write the story down to preserve it in my mind. And I had heard so many times oh, you're not going to forget your birth. It's like an unforgettable experience. But there are little pieces that you don't remember, and the people around you will remind you. So a lot of times, my own doula has reminded me of pieces of my birth story that happened. So anyway, I found myself wanting to write my story, but I just never wrote it. And then I found myself wanting to record my story and just have a recording of it. And then I heard God tell me, you can record your story and other people will listen to your story. So I've had this dream, this goal, this God message in my ear for a long time telling me to start this podcast. So I'm incredibly grateful for my own home birth journey. And I'm incredibly grateful to be starting this podcast and this platform to be sharing my home birth story and opening a space for other Black mothers to share their home birth story. So with that being said, my Black Home Birth podcast is a space for Black mothers, Black families, Black midwives, Black birth workers, including doulas, lactation consultants, therapists, chiropractors, to come and share their stories. This is a space for us to hold space for each other, unapologetically, boldly, loudly, proudly, however you want to share your story or however you want to share this space. So that is why I created my Black Home Birth podcast, and I can't wait to share this with so many others in this world. And I pray that it reaches every individual person where they need to be met. I think that's enough. Let's get started. So thank you for joining me on my Black Home Birth podcast. And here's my backstory. Why did I even choose a home birth? So I work in the birth world. I am a perinatal chiropractor. I am also a childbirth educator. I'm a labor doula. I'm a certified placenta encapsulator. And I currently teach anatomy and physiology to nursing students. But anyway, I have kind of always known that I wanted to have a more natural birth. Well, I can't say always, but I can say when I entered the holistic profession, a holistic profession, as a chiropractor, I entered this holistic bubble, and any other chiropractors listening to this know what I'm talking about. When you're in chiropractic school, you're in this little bubble where everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants to do the holistic things. So that's what I was surrounded by in my early 20s, mid 20s when I was going through chiropractic school. So all I heard about was home births, natural births, unmedicated births, using midwives. I learned so much about that side of birth while I was in chiropractic school. And I'm so grateful for that. And oddly enough, as a kid, I never thought of myself as being a mother or having kids. I was always unsure if I wanted kids. But I watched this show growing up with my mom called Birthday, and I think it came on TLC. And I remember Saturday mornings, my mom and I would sit and watch Birthday, and it would just be babies being born, birth stories being told. And all of them were hospital births, but all of them were beautiful. Like when the baby came out, no matter how it came out, vaginal, C-section, it was just a beautiful story. And I was so fascinated. I was definitely under 10 years old, but I was so fascinated. And I just remember my mom would always be emotional watching the babies be born. And it was just a really good like bonding time for us. And I remember that vividly about my childhood. And I honestly think it shaped like, the direction that my career has gone in now, because I grew up telling people I'm going to be a baby doctor. And what I meant by that was I want to be an OBGYN. Then I went to college, a dose of reality hit. I realized how long medical school was and what it took to get into medical school and kind of like what Western medicine was like. So I switched gears and I decided I don't want to go to medical school, but I still want to work in women's health. I still want to work in the birth world. And so I found chiropractic school. I found my holistic bubble and it felt right. I knew I could still work with women and children and babies, and I went for it. And so I have tailored my chiropractic career to work around mothers and babies, and it's been beautiful and wonderful. So with all of that knowledge and my career building, that is how I landed on deciding to have a home birth. I just knew in my body that that's what I wanted. I also knew that my body was capable of that. I learned a lot in chiropractic school about how the body was made to heal itself. The body was made to go through natural processes. Our nervous system was built for these things, such as childbirth. And I trusted that. And I knew that my body could go through childbirth. Also, I love a good challenge, which sounds crazy because don't have a home birth just because you want a good challenge. But my whole life, I've always been a go-getter. And I trusted that I could do this. And I wanted to give myself and my body a shot. Now, I'm not crazy. I had a backup plan. We lived close to a hospital, blah, blah, blah. But I knew that my body could have a home birth. We went on the journey. And I'm so blessed because my husband is also more on the natural side, holistic side of healthcare things. And so when we got pregnant and I brought up to him that I wanted to have a home birth, there was literally no question. It was kind of like, oh, yeah, of course we'll have a home birth. Not that we are like anti-hospital or anything, but both of us are just like, yes, that seems like what we should do. It's like the natural way. So we started our search for a midwife. We knew we were pregnant fairly early, like 8 to 10 weeks or something. So around the 12-week mark, we started searching for a midwife, did a couple interviews, and then settled on a midwife. And we're just off to the races with everything. I will say our prenatal care was exceptional. Some people think that when you have a midwife for a home birth, you get a different prenatal care. We used a certified nurse midwife, so we were on the same prenatal schedule as anybody who would have been going to a regular OBGYN. We had the same amount of checkups, the same time frame of checkups and everything, but our visits were meaningful. They were usually like 45 minutes long, 45 minutes to an hour long. Mentally, emotionally, physically, of course, did all the regular tests that we would do at an OB's office, but we did them in the midwife office. And it was great. I can say that my pregnancy was pretty good. Of course, morning sickness, not even morning sickness. Well, I guess you can call it morning sickness. Just like nausea the first almost like 18 weeks of pregnancy. But other than that, all good. I felt healthy and well my whole pregnancy. I worked as a chiropractor my whole pregnancy up until 39 weeks and everything was good. So that kind of leads me to how things started, my actual birth story. So I was working in a chiropractic office and seeing patients throughout the week. And I decided at 39 weeks, I would be done because that would give me time to go home and nest and rest and just prepare. So I stopped working on a Friday. I was like exactly 39 weeks on a Friday. And that was I stopped working. And babies come when they want. So in my mind, I had this plan. I was going to just relax for a whole week. As you can imagine, that is not what happened. So my labor started on that Sunday. I stopped working 39 weeks on a Friday, and labor started on Sunday. So going into that weekend of like, oh, I'm done working, I can relax now. My husband and I were like, okay, let's use this time to prepare. Let's use this time to enjoy each other's, few days together, weeks together, whatever it was going to be. Because, birth is unpredictable. We didn't know when she was coming, but we were like, okay, I have time off. Let's use this time wisely. So on Saturday, we definitely used our time wisely, and we did what grown-ups do when we have alone time. And we had great sex on Saturday afternoon. And so I can say, without a doubt, sex started my labor. It was not on purpose. It was just one of those things that we were like, this could be our last time we have uninterrupted sex for a while. And so we did, and it was great. It was amazing. And what happened was afterwards, I literally I could not get dry. A couple hours later, I was like, why am I not dry? And so later in the evening, I was like, okay, this isn't supposed to be happening. I think something is wrong. And so I was like, am I leaking fluid? And as a childbirth educator, I know that sex can start labor. But I was like, no, sex didn't just start my labor like that. But yes, the sex did start my leaking. So I was in denial. That's the moral of this part of the story, denial. So I was in denial. I ignored it. The next morning, it was a Sunday morning, I went for a hike because I hike with a group here in Atlanta called the Maternal Wellness Hikers. Shout out to them. I did a 3-mile hike Sunday morning. I met my friend Michelle there, and it was a long hike. And I told her what was up. I told her hey, I think I'm leaking. So I had put a pad on that morning and just wanted to see what's going to happen. So after our 3-mile hike, uphill, downhill, all around to the bathroom, and that pad was soaked. Okay, so there was no denying that I was leaking. I was actually leaking fluid. So at that point, I'm like, okay, cool. Let me just let my midwife know. So I let her know, and she was kind of like, okay, well, you need to keep me updated on how many pads you're filling up and how much fluid is actually leaking. So I did that. I kept the pad on to try to track how much fluid was leaking. But I also went on about my day. I told my husband that I wanted to go grocery shopping and get things in order, get meal prep ready. And my friend Michelle offered to help me meal prep that next day. So we went ahead and did all the grocery shopping we needed to do. We were in Kroger grocery store at 5 or 6 p.m. on that Sunday and just shopping away. My midwife called to check on me at that point, and I was like, oh yeah, nothing's going on. I'm fine. Just wearing a pad. It's not soaked. There's fluid in it, but it's not soaked. Just being very nonchalant. I was. So then before we checked out, I had to go to the bathroom. And so I went in the bathroom, and when I wiped, there was my bloody show. I've listened to many birth stories, read many birth stories, and I know what bloody show means. Bloody show means you are going to be in labor soon, real labor soon. So no more denying. I called my midwife back and I let her know, hey, I had the bloody show. So I think I'm actually in labor. And so she's like, okay, cool. Just keep me updated on any changes and everything that's going on. Again, I'm still yeah, whatever. Because I'm trying to just keep cool, I guess, and trying to ignore the fact that I'm in labor, because that's what we learn as in the childbirth education class. Don't go crazy. Don't be oh, my baby's about to come right now, because birth is a process and it can be long. So when we got to the checkout line, I don't know if I had been cramping, but that's when I realized oh, my stomach is actually cramping. And I was cramping every 10 minutes or something. And so I was oh, these are contractions. And I was oh my gosh, my labor actually is starting. So long part of the story made short. I was in denial. I was leaking, but I was in labor, starting my labor on that Sunday night. Fast forward, I get home. I'm determined to meal prep. So I went ahead and made one soup that I love. And I'm so grateful I made that soup because it was my first postpartum meal. And I told my husband to go to work because I was fine. And I was oh, labor is not going to be right now. You can go to work. He worked nights. And I'm just go to work. I'll be fine until the morning, I'm sure. So I made my soup. I went to bed. And around 2 in the morning, the contractions intensified. So I called him and I said, "Can you come home, please?" Because I didn't want to do that by myself. I didn't want to, labor by myself, go through contractions by myself in the early stages. I just wanted his support. So he was able to come home in a couple hours. I also notified my midwife that my contractions had intensified and had picked up. So she also came over at 5 in the morning to check on me and just kind of see what was going on. One of the things about my birth, my midwife never told me, when she checked me, she never told me what amount of centimeters my cervix was dilated. And in hindsight, it's probably for the better. But also in hindsight, I kind of wish I knew. So I'm assuming when she checked me at 5 a.m. when she got there wasn't much going on. I think, these are the parts that my doula remembers or my husband remembers. I think I was maybe 1 or 2 centimeters and my contractions were somewhat inconsistent. So she told me go rest some more, try to rest through the contractions. She stayed at my house and her birth assistant. They were downstairs on the couch. They were resting as well. And so I rested to the early morning, 7 or 8, I guess. And then I was like, okay, I need to get my labor going. As a childbirth educator, as a doula, I'm like, okay, how do we get this thing sped up? Because I had mostly rested through the evening, from when I went to bed at 9 or 10, woke up at 2 to call my husband, and then went back to sleep until they got there at 5. So I was a little bit rested. So I was ready to get up and do some things. So walked my cul-de-sac, walked my stairs, just trying to really pick my labor up. But things were not moving as fast as I thought they should. And also my midwife was a little concerned about my waters leaking since Saturday afternoon, essentially, and coming up on a 48-hour mark, because that would have been her cutoff for me, not knowing how much amniotic fluid I had left. So what she suggested was that I drink castor oil to move things along. And at the mention of castor oil, I think I was hysterical, emotional, cried about it, didn't want to do it. I just knew that it would intensify my labor. I don't necessarily enjoy pain, of course, so I knew that the cramping from the castor oil would intensify everything. So I cried about it, but I drank the castor oil because I wanted to have a baby. And she let me know, we need to get these contractions consistent. We need to basically speed things up because we're a little bit on a time clock since my amniotic fluid had been leaking. So I drank the castor oil. I continued to walk and rest. And at that point, I called my doula. And I let her know that I had drank the castor oil and that I know I would be needing her support soon. Because up until that point, I was okay, with just me, my husband, and his support. But that castor oil I knew was going to change things. So she let me know that she would be on the way in a couple hours, which actually her timing was perfect because it took a couple hours for that castor oil to kick in. But while I was waiting for it to kick in, I don't know what was going on emotionally. And if you ever had a baby, you probably know what I'm talking about. I feel like my emotions were all over the place. So I had another chiropractor friend come over and she did some emotional work with me. It's called neuro-emotional technique because I wanted to try to get my emotions in check. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't emotionally blocking myself from releasing and allowing my labor to progress. And so I had her come over and do some emotional work with me. There was lots of tears, lots of crying. And basically what came up was I was worried about everybody else in the room. The thing that I remember most from that session was her asking me if I was worried about something or somebody else. And I just looked up and looked at my midwife and I was bawling my eyes out. And I was like, "Did you eat today?" And in hindsight, I'm like, I am a crazy person. What is wrong with me? So I was worried about everybody around me waiting on me to have my baby, I think was the issue. And of course, first time mom, first baby was essentially felt like I was being watched and I was holding everybody up. I guess I was having a form of performance anxiety. These people are waiting for me to have this baby. I need to hurry up. My body's not doing it. So that was just a lot of emotions going on there. So I'm not sure that I cleared those emotions or not, but I am grateful that my friend came over and at least worked through some of that with me. And I think that allowed the people around me to know what was going on with me emotionally as well. So I think it was helpful. I probably should have had her actually adjust me as well. She's a chiropractor. I probably should have had her check my sacrum. But I had got adjusted like 2 days prior, and I was like, oh, I think I'm okay. Anyway, hindsight is 2020. I definitely would have done that differently. So after my emotional breakdown and wondering if my midwife had something to eat the whole time she had been there, my contractions started picking up, and they definitely intensified, and that castor oil definitely worked, and my doula was there by that time, and the castor oil sent me to the bathroom, okay? Let me tell you. I spent most of my labor on the toilet. Lots of poop, okay? The castor oil cleans everything out. And this is the part where I say, I am so grateful to my doula. And I'm going to publicly say thank you for sitting in the bathroom with me for hours while I literally pooped and contracted. You were singing with me, you were praying with me, you were rubbing my back, you were doing hip squeezes, sacral compression. It was all lovely. And I just can't believe you sat in the bathroom with me for as long as you did. So that's just a plug to say, when you're choosing your doula, make sure you choose somebody that you trust and somebody that you are comfortable with and somebody that you may have to sit in the bathroom with for hours while you poop. If you're listening to this and feel called to share your voice, this invitation is for you. My Black Home Birth is actively welcoming Black mothers, midwives, birth workers, doulas, lactation consultants, and any birth advocates to join us on the podcast. If you are a mother who wants to share your birth story, whether it was empowering, complicated, dramatic, healing, or something you're still processing, your story matters here. You don't need a perfect experience to be heard. Honesty is what helps other Black women feel less alone. And if you're a midwife, birth worker, or advocate doing this work in your community, we want to hear from you too. We want to learn about your journey, your philosophy of care, the barriers you see Black families facing, and the ways that you are helping to create safer, more informed birth experiences. This podcast exists to elevate lived experience, professional wisdom, and community-centered solutions, all with Black maternal health at the center. If you feel aligned with this mission and would like to be a guest, you can apply using the link in the description. Share as much or as little as you feel comfortable. Every conversation is approached with care, respect, and intention. This is a space for truth-telling, education, and collective healing. If that resonates with you, we would love to welcome you onto the show. So that was a major part of my birth, lots of time in the bathroom. And then we spent lots of time just kind of relaxing in the bed, and she would do hip squeezes for me in the bed. This is the part where we just had to let labor run its course. I had a birthing tub there. I tried to get in the birthing tub, and I absolutely hated it. So I, again, asked for permission, and I was like, can I get out of here? And my doula's like, yeah, you can get out. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to be in there. Because I could not find a comfortable position. It's like I wanted to be like submerged up to my neck in water. I wanted my entire body covered in warm water. And so, of course, in a birth pool, it's just kind of like your midsection down is in the water, but like your upper back and your neck are out of the water. And I think that difference in temperature was getting to me. The sensation was annoying me. And then I couldn't get in like a comfortable squat in the water. I was all over the place mentally and physically, and I couldn't find the right position. So I was like, let's just wrap it up. Let me just get out of here. So then by this point, I think I was like pretty much pooped out, and I got to spend some time off the toilet. So I also remember like I need to have like a come to Jesus moment with myself. So I went in the shower and spent a lot of time in the shower. And I remember my husband came and checked on me in there when I was just in the bathroom by myself. And I know like my doula was out in the hallway and my midwife just kind of listening and seeing what was going on with me, but not bothering me, because I needed a moment to just be. And I needed to like give myself a pep talk that like, Brittney, get your shit together. You can do this. And I think that was around the same time that like I was using my husband for support, and I looked at him, and what I said to him was, why am I doing this? In his words, he says, I asked to go to the hospital. I never asked to go to the hospital. I just said, why am I doing this? I was tired. I was feeling defeated, because at this point, I feel like I had been laboring from like 9 p.m. Sunday, and around this time was like 5 p.m. Monday. And again, these are all normal time frames. And I know this as a childbirth educator. I know these things, but my mind just was like, it was in this place of like, hurry up, Brittney, have your baby, which sounds crazy, but it was my truth. And also there was an element of hurry up and have this baby because I wanted to have my home birth. And my midwife had let me know that with me leaking for some period of time, like we had to have a cutoff to be safe at like that 48-hour mark. So a few hours go by, again, just kind of all around the house, laboring. Well, upstairs, we had 2 levels, stayed upstairs between the bathroom and the bed and just kind of like walking around. And one thing I will add about like the coping. So I said I had my midwife, or not my midwife, I had my doula there doing hip squeezes, telling me, you know, that I could do this, breathing techniques, reminding me to breathe through contractions. My husband has a fan on me at all times, like a handheld fan, because I needed that. Other things, he was offering me water. So one of the other things that we did to prepare for birth was take a hypnobirthing class, because I just knew I was going to meditate my way into having this baby. What I will say is I've seen hypnobirthing work for other moms. I've been at births as a doula where the moms use hypnobirthing, and it totally worked for them. They went inward and they were able to work through their contractions with the meditation techniques. And so we did use the hypnobirthing techniques in my early labor. My husband would read me the scripts. We had the hypnobirthing tracks playing in the background, and I was doing my best to like zen myself out and get into this meditation mode. But I think when that castor oil hit, when the contractions intensified, that went out the window. Okay, the hypnobirthing did not necessarily work for us. But also, meditation takes practice. So if you want to do hypnobirthing, I think you got to start early and you got to practice often, like throughout your pregnancy. And as a busy working business owner, chiropractor, I just didn't have time to practice the meditation and the hypnobirthing scripts like I should have. And I think I would try it again. But ultimately, what got me through my most intense contractions was my doula, prayer. We called on Jesus a lot, and her hip squeezes. So I say Jesus and hip squeezes got me through my labor. And I'm so grateful for that. So anyway, the prep did matter. I mean, prep matters when you're getting ready for this marathon, right? Our prep may or may not have worked as well as I thought it would, but I'm grateful for the journey regardless. And I'm grateful for my doula, especially, and my husband. He definitely was a great support system. But there was times where he was like questioning if something was normal and if this was supposed to happen that way. So I'm super grateful that we had the help that we did have. So fast forward, I guess around like I said, the shower, come to Jesus meeting was around 5. I feel like the rest of the time I just wanted to like lay around and rest in the bed. There was a moment in between that time where I definitely was throwing up because things were getting more intense. And that was a switch for me, I think, mentally to be like, okay, I know when women throw up, we're in transition. I got to have this baby in the next couple hours. So I was kind of happy to throw up. So at that point, we got on the bed and just kind of rested. And my midwife had me do some practice pushes to kind of see where I was at. She checked me again. And I obviously wasn't ready to have a baby still. But she wanted me to continue doing some practice pushes and kind of move baby down, apparently. So I did that. And I just remember being in my bed. And at some point, she checked me and was like, okay, let's start pushing. So it was go time. And we started pushing. And I think I was just so relieved to be able to start pushing, to like get the go of like, okay, let's do it. Let's push. So pushing was hard, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. Pushing was hard. And I felt like I was pushing with everything I had, everything in. So again, another prep thing, I did do pelvic floor physical therapy to just kind of feel what pushing could feel like. And I wanted to know that my muscles in my pelvic floor were working properly. Nothing was too tight. Nothing was too loose. But pushing was still very hard for me. And it helped me when my midwife actually would put her fingers inside my vaginal canal and tell me like where to push. Another side note, obviously I didn't poop while I was pushing because I was all pooped out from the castor oil and the contracting. But it is a totally normal thing for women to have a bowel movement while you're pushing because you're pushing all the same stuff. Like the muscles are all next door to each other down there. And also, when you push a baby out, you're pushing past the rectum. And if there is poop in there, it's going to come out, and that's okay. But I was grateful that I had already got it out. So anyway, I was bearing down, pushing like I had to poop because those were kind of the instructions that I had. Was not in the water because I determined that I didn't like it. So we were on my bed pushing. I remember doing some hands and knees pushing, and my husband was on the bed with me. So I was like hands and knees kind of hanging on to him or leaning on him. But I also didn't feel comfortable pushing in that position. As a doula, as a childbirth educator, I knew that I needed to get where I felt comfortable and where it felt natural and good for me. So that was not the water, and that was not hands and knees for me, believe it or not. It was laying on my back, sorta. I was more so leaning on my husband because he was behind me, straddled behind me, and I was leaning on him, and he was helping hold my legs up. So essentially, like, a hospital bed position, but I was in my own bed on the edge of it, and it was great. And so a couple things we tried, tug of war. So where I would pull a sheet while I pushed. And I feel like that gave me some power. But the most thing that gave me the power was when my midwife explained to me to like hold my breath, bear down, and push. And so that worked. That moved baby down eventually. And I remember when they were saying like, oh, we can see her hair. And they're asking me like, do you want to see her hair? Do you want me to get a mirror? And I am just like, no, like, why would you ask me that? I just want to push. So then they asked like if I wanted to reach down and touch her hair. And I'm like, no, I don't want to touch her hair. I just want to push. Like, I just wanted to push her out. And so my midwife's like, okay, be patient. You don't want to tear anything up down here. And I'm grateful for that advice because I didn't want to tear anything up down there. So finally, we pushed a little bit further, and that's when I knew she was coming because I felt that ring, that stretching, burning ring. And that's when she was like, you don't want to tear anything up down here, because we had to slow down. I had to breathe. I had to let her stretch me. And then I was able to push, and I pushed her head out. And the first thing my midwife said when I pushed her head out was, she has teeth. And I'm like, what? She has teeth? And so I'm like, can I push? I just wanted to push so that I could like get her out. And then of course, like see the teeth that my midwife's talking about. So of course I had to wait for the next contraction. I think the next couple contractions, it was like 2 more pushes and her whole body was out. And I felt a huge gush of water come out with her. And of course, a huge wave of relief, a huge wave of emotions. And I just was crying, bawling my eyes out. And I remember looking at my husband saying, look at our baby girl. This is our baby girl. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And a side note, my parents were on FaceTime. My husband had set up the iPad so that they could watch me have my baby. And it was beautiful. So I like made sure that they saw her on the camera because I didn't necessarily want anyone in my birth space, like including my parents. But there was a moment in my birth where I was on the toilet and I was like, can someone call my mom? So they called my mom. I just wanted to check in with her. I wanted her to know I was okay. But I didn't call anybody else, like no friends or anybody. So I did want them present via FaceTime. So they were on FaceTime when she was born. I'm grateful for that. And I saw her teeth and I was like, wow, what the heck? It took me a minute to process that. But a moment that I remember vividly and one of the most memorable moments of my birth for me was when she was born. My midwife handed her to me, and I remember just looking down at my midwife. She's between my legs with her bloody hands because she just caught my baby. And I looked at her in the eye and I was crying. And I was just telling her, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you so much for not giving up on me. And it felt really deep. And in the moment, I don't really know like why I was so thankful for her, but And I said, thank you for, not giving up on me. And it's on camera, so maybe I'll share that moment. I don't know. But her support was unwavering. And I know that if I had a different midwife, my outcome of my birth story would have been different. So I am so grateful for her. And I'm so grateful that she was my midwife. And I think what I meant when I said, thank you for not giving up on me was thank you for not letting me give up on me. Because she did encourage me, she did push me, and she gave me this sense of peace and comfort that everything was fine the entire time. I never once felt scared. I never once felt like anything was wrong or that I couldn't do it. And I really feel like that was because of her. And so that moment of me just like holding her hand, holding my baby and looking her in the eye and telling her thank you was very memorable for me. And I hope that resonated and came through what I was trying to say to her. And if it didn't, I'm telling you now, I'm super grateful that you were my midwife. And I'm so thankful to have had you as my birth team, on my birth team. So that is my birth story, and I'm super grateful to be able to share it with you all. And I hope that my story resonates with someone. I hope that it inspires someone and lets you know that you can do this. I think the biggest takeaways from my story are find the right team and know that you can do it. And prepare yourself for this because birth is a marathon. And I don't know where I was mentally, but it was a marathon. It was 22 hours, but it was 22 beautiful hours. And I'm so grateful for the way that things ended. My postpartum was good. My midwife came back the next day to check on me. My doula came back to check on me a couple days. My parents came the next day. So I had great support in postpartum and everything was great. So thank you for listening to my birth story. And I want to say, what does Black home birth mean to me? To me, Black home birth means feeling safe, feeling supported, and knowing that you can do it. And like I just said previously, I had all of that and I felt all of that in the space that I created with my Black birth team and my Black home birth. So with that being said, thank you for listening to My Black Home Birth, and I'll see you on the next episode. Before we wrap up, I want to share a few simple ways you can support My Black Home Birth. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications, and like and comment on this episode. Those small actions help this podcast reach more Black families who need to hear this information. You can also follow us on social media at My Black Home Birth to stay connected, join the conversation, and see updates on upcoming episodes. If you'd like to support the podcast financially, you can do so by purchasing merchandise through our website using the link in the description. Every purchase directly supports the growth of this platform and the stories we share. And if you're a small business owner or a brand that aligns with our mission and you would like to be featured on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at myblackhomebirth@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this space. And thank you for supporting a podcast dedicated to Black birth, Black voices, and Black maternal health. We'll see you in the next episode.